Every voice matters. Blue Lift is a podcast dedicated to address the issues that affect all of us, with engaging discussions with progressive thought leaders and experts as guests. Here's your host, Peggy Kingsbury.
Welcome back, everybody, to Blue Lift. What a fabulous time it is to be alive. Hey, it's a beautiful Tuesday. That's when the episodes come out here. And I'm just so excited and grateful that you decided to join us and spend a little time with us today. I have, as a guest today, a master communicator, someone who knows how to communicate in all the different forms of communication. And so we have with us today Matt Anderson. Matt is my friend. He has a BS degree in mass communications from MTSU. And Matt has under his belt some time in media working for the Chattanooga Free Press. He worked for the Hendersonville Star News here in Tennessee. He's been a reporter for the Tennessean, and we had David Plazas on a couple weeks ago. And that was a great interview. And he currently is the press secretary for the state Democratic Caucus.
That's as of 2019. I was there 2012 to 2019.
Okay, 2012 to 2019. Okay, so you have been the press secretary for the state Democratic Caucus.
I did my time.
So now whatever their messaging is that's not right, we can't blame that on you, right?
No.
Okay.
Unless you like it, then you can credit,
Well, I got to cross off 40 questions I had because I was getting ready to let you have it. No, I'm kidding. And now you are an entrepreneur and the owner of your own company, and your media company is called Fortify.
Fortify Communications. Yes.
Yeah, so that it takes a little bit of bravery to open up your own shop, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
At the heart of it, I wanted to do political consulting here in Tennessee, here in the South, but do it, in a way that makes sense and not be so DC led.
Yeah. So interesting. And I know you do a good job of it, and we're going to talk about all that. I know one of your latest ventures, though, you're sort of venturing into Tennessee history as that relates to politics and what's going on. Tell us what you're doing in that space.
Yeah, so this is something I've started playing around with, and full disclosure here, I've started becoming a heavier ChatGPT user and finding fun applications for it, right? And everybody knows the productive applications, but it's really good at pattern recognition, right? So I wanted it to help me understand stories in Tennessee history and help us understand them in broad ways. And that, for me, came from a place of, I promised you we'll get this back to campaigns eventually, but it came from a place of wanting to give progressives and liberals stories of Tennessee that we can be proud to live in and that feel true.
Okay.
So, let's zoom out.
Make me feel proud to live in Tennessee.
Well, I will. I promise you I will. Because there's so much about this. This state is really, really cool.
Okay.
Right? If you think about it. So let's start.
We only have an hour, man.
All right. So I'm going to try to go really fast. So somebody's going to say I left something out or I glossed too. There's some pretty heavy events, but let's go quickly through it all.
There are always critics. Don't worry about that.
All right. So let's start pre-settler, right? There were indigenous native peoples here who lived in harmony with the land, and Middle Tennessee was even something of a religious center for different indigenous cultures. And that legacy of being a religious center is actually still here with us, right?
Isn't that the truth?
In so many ways, right? But let's go through the whole history of settlement of Tennessee and get to today and just be really honest, right? Not to tear anything down or to say, Tennessee's all a lie, et cetera, but let's just look at it unflinchingly. Settlers arrive here and there's intention. Right? Tennessee was not a thing.
No.
It was, it's a thing now. We've lived it.
It was a place on God's earth.
It was a drawing, right?
Yeah.
And so let's think about why it got drawn the way it did. America has this manifest destiny, and we're in these mountains, but we know we want to settle past and beyond. So Tennessee becomes a testing ground. First, we have to remove the indigenous Native Americans. Right. And that story's terrible. And it climaxes into the Trail of Tears.
Yes.
And then we begin to build the plantation economy in this state.
In a big way.
And, we can point to the Deep South. This is a big part of our story. But, it's worse down there.
Right.
We're not like those people up north, and we're not like those people down there. Right. We're really exceptional. And part of the reason is we are doing things in moderate ways that we can show to the rest of the nation, right? So we have an impact on the nation in that way. Tennessee has always been a stage. So we get through the Trail of Tears, and then we have the Civil War and slavery, and we know what all that means to our history. Well, then in the Civil War, we were so divided compared to the rest of the South. And so there is goodness in that, that we can start to hang ourselves on, right? And then there's Reconstruction almost actually worked, right? We know about the black lawmakers,
well, it
right?
did for a minute.
It did just a minute, right? Because the bad guys clamped down hard after that, right?
Right.
But, in those years, the Fisk Jubilee Singers emerge, right?
Yes.
That is Tennessee.
They're fabulous as well.
And now you're proud to be from here, right? And we can keep adding these stories.
I'm proud of the Fisk Jubilee Singers.
Sure. No. I mean, we've talked about some awful shit. But like what starts to emerge, and there's people in this state, regardless of party, who don't comply with this regime, right? And there is common decency everywhere.
Well, we have Dolly.
Right.
Wherever we can mention it, we have Dolly.
And it's amazing you mention her because she is part of that core soul.
She really
of
is.
Our state. So is Tina Turner, Alex Haley, right? Some of these figures.
Yes. Elvis.
Right. And if you really, if you wanted to look at figures today, we could find those souls around us, right?
Sure.
So our state has been punctuated by these conflicts, and if we look back at Reconstruction, Redemption, Jim Crow, civil rights, like we know who the good guys are. We have those heroes. We have John Lewis. We do. We have the Highland School, right? We have the civil rights sit-ins that were also rehearsed here.
We have the Woolworths counter you can still go see. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so, and then in the 60s after civil rights, the system here learned to accommodate civil rights. And we learned to do white flight and busing, get through all of these things and put a polite sheen.
Yes.
And you've seen that happen through gay rights and religion here and all these things.
Yeah, it is an interesting story of the history of a state, and probably many other states. I think you're right, though. I think Tennessee is unique in some ways because the state has been at the very high of the highest and the low of the lowest, and we've managed to sort of soak all that up and do it.
Exactly. And at the lowest and at the highest, we are rehearsing America for the rest of the country.
Right.
And they watch us.
And also there was the suffrage movement and its culmination with the Tennessee legislature.
Absolutely. I mean, we can keep going, and we could have a mood board, and you'd have a little tear streaming down your face.
My mood right now, it does involve tears.
Our mood is not happy right now with this place.
No.
But, I've got us almost to today, and we can think of Covenant as a religious wound, and we can think of the way people are unsettled and the way the legislature's not really legitimate. Well, yeah. And people.
When I look at, it's interesting that we started with this topic because lately I've been trying to sort of reframe things in my head so that I don't go completely crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm reminding myself, my husband and I say this, what goes on in the legislature is not the whole of us.
Right.
And the things that they say and do, for example, right now at this moment in time while we're taping, my home county, Williamson County, has a county seal that has a Confederate flag on it. People for years have been saying, you know what, we get it that we have some Civil War battlefields in the county, but we really can take that flag off now. That's about enough of that. And many people have valiantly fought that, and the county commission said, you know what, citizens, you're exactly right. Mm-hmm. We can have a fabulous county seal and that can still have a cannon on it to talk about our battlefields, but we don't have to drape it in a Confederate flag. And now in our legislature, they are voting today, I guess, today's Thursday, today, to make it a law that we can't take that flag off our seal. So in the year of our Lord, 2025, we literally have legislators in Nashville not passing a bill to make sure children can have lunches during the summer, because a lot of poor kids don't get to eat a lot in the summer. Mm-hmm. Teachers tell you they come back later. They're not passing a bill about that. They're not passing a bill to keep rural medical facilities open. They're not passing that. They're not passing a bill, to help Tennesseans with all manner of things that they need help with. No. They're spending their time passing a bill aimed at stopping the wealthiest county in the state from taking a Confederate flag off their seal.
Right.
What the hell?
And those are the tensions we're living with, right? We look at them and they just drain the life out of us. But
I'm trying to remember, as I said, that what's going on there is not the whole of us,
right,
because there are so many people fighting for so many good things. I mean, I've had so many guests on this podcast, and my listeners know this. I've had people who are fighting for the rights of disabled adults and children. I've had people talking about repairing and restoring their faith after being traumatized by a religious organization. I've had people talking about freedom of press and how all of that is supposed to work for us, and it can work for us. So, I mean, I've had beautiful stories of things that are going well and being done well. So I have to remember that all of that exists. And yeah, there's a bit of a rotten core right now in the legislature. But
and I think the rot is in church basements and homes and group texts. It's really everywhere, right? This same rot. But to your point about all the guests you've had and the legislature, it doesn't represent us, right?
No.
Your guests are more representative of the whole of Tennessee.
Right.
We could get into all the structural and political reasons the Democratic Party is so down under in the state, but
and that's
their moral authority that they've had and cultivated so hard is really falling apart.
Right. I frequently have people who will say to me, friends who live in other places, and why are you still there?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I'll always be here, but for now, this is where I am. Mm-hmm. And my last guest, we were talking about using the gifts that we have to be influencers in the way in which we can, that's unique to us. And so that's what you and I are doing right now.
That's right.
So let's talk about, Matt, we got to know each other because when I was working with a political organization, you were hired to do some messaging for some candidates. And I want to talk about that some because I think a lot of people wonder what really works, or on the other side, they're wondering, why do I keep getting all this mail? So from your expertise, your area of expertise, because you're an expert in this area, do postcards work? Because we sure get a boatload of them during election season.
You've asked me a loaded question that strikes to the heart of my the way I earn a living.
So you better say yes.
Yeah, right.
But let's talk
Junk mail
about
works,
that.
Everybody.
Because then I want to talk about what kind of mail works.
Yeah, no, I mean, so here's, I guess, like a 30-second soundbite of what works in campaigns and why we do the things we do. And then there's so many other rabbit holes we could go down. But I tell clients and candidates, and I think of campaigns in this way, and I actually stole this from John Rowley, so credit where it's due, but to think about diet and exercise, right? I want to lose weight. What do I do? Okay, I could come up with 100 fad things, stupid things, trends, tricks, whatever. I still got to do diet and exercise. I got to eat less and I got to run or whatever the exercise is. So you kind of have to focus on what is the diet and exercise of campaigns. And then we might try a supplement or do this other shit too. But we got to hone in on diet and exercise. What is diet and exercise? In a campaign, that means contacting voters, hopefully 10 times, and asking them to vote for you. That is your marketing call of action. Vote for Claire Jones, right? Whoever it is.
Right.
And you want the voter to, in a perfect world, let's say it is Claire Jones. Her ears will be ringing, but ideally Claire knocks on your door twice and a volunteer knocks on your door 3 more times. You get reminder calls to vote. You get the 3 postcards. You see the video on your phone a few times. And you see the signs on the way to school, right? And that sounds relentless and abusive. And if you pay a whole lot of attention, it does start to feel that way, right? But from a marketing campaign consulting perspective, when we make those hits with people and they start to complain, what they're saying is, I've heard something about Claire Jones.
Right.
Right? Which is like the hardest thing to do, period. Right?
Just the name recognition.
Just the name recognition and the fact that there's an election and that like it might halfway matter.
Well, and that's interesting because when I think about this topic, I always think about, my one of my thoughts might be, God, I wish I quit getting all this mail. This crap doesn't work. Who reads the mail anymore? But then I fire up social media and somebody's put a picture of the postcard up there and they're either loving it or hating it. And then all these other people begin to talk about it. So obviously it is getting people's attention.
Yeah. Well, and if somebody posts your postcard on social media, God, you nailed it, right? You did something here.
So let's talk about kind of the elephant in the room.
Okay.
I love it when I say that as a Democrat because,
sure.
Elephant. Anyway, do the negative postcards work? Do the negative messages work? Do the messages that say, don't vote for that jackass because he is a jackass, does that work?
I have a gut theory about it that is not backed by science.
My producer loves the fact that I used jackass and elephant, and that was intentional because I can be a little clever.
Oh, okay. I like it. You got to watch Peggy, folks. Remind me where we were. Do negatives work?
Yes.
My theory is, here's my gut theory, finally, after all that wind up. Negative works if you're reminding people what they know. Negative is stupid and wasteful if it's like, hey, believe this new thing and make a decision based on it in 3 days, right?
Really?
Which I think is closer to what people try, right? Like, hey, Gino Bulso is a little midget monster, right? Like, and he, whatever shit was on that mailer, right? You know which one I'm talking about. But this like,
and you did not put that mailer out, by the way.
I didn't do that one, and I don't want to go deep into criticizing it or whatever. But just like being really sensational and saying things that people have never heard before, right? That might sound wild. Like don't bother, right? But I've been in campaigns where this was a Democratic primary. I won't use names, but we had two Democrats, and one had a history of domestic violence, and the other candidate was not a criminal, right? So my client was a women's PAC. We wanted to sort that out for folks.
Yeah.
So I mean, and this was an African American male, so we did a very, very tasteful mail piece that just repeated what was on the news.
See, I love that. I've never thought about it that way, but what you're saying I think is real important, and I hope my viewers get that, is that when you are even to the point of talking to someone about voting for a candidate that you're in favor of, it's always best to, hone in on what's already known and out there that might be negative instead of trying to come up with something new.
Right.
So I guess in your world, when a news story hits the print media or social media about someone, you wait it out a little bit, see if it catches on, and then you do the postcard about it, right? You don't want to be the first to reveal that so-and-so has done this.
Absolutely. And if you want to be really organized and crafty, plan your opposition research way out, get it all. You can do it with a firm or you can just Google, like whatever your capacity or size of your campaign is. But you can get that stuff. You can plan the leak. You can get it out. And then it's in the water before you do that negative mail piece that says, hey, remember this shit?
It's a nasty business, isn't it?
It is a nasty business, full of nasty people, and
it is, and it's so distasteful when you get involved in it, but yet it's also necessary.
It is, and I'm glad you brought this up. I mean, we're talking a lot about negative mail, and I tell people to keep it positive. I love to rip people a new one. I love a takedown. It can feel righteous. Feels good to have that fire, right? But man, that's not the campaign I want.
Well, right,
to be as a voter myself, right?
Yeah,
I want to hear inspiring ideas, right?
Well, I've seen your pieces, and I've been a part of approving some of those pieces for to be published, and they are positive. And so one of the things that I love that you do is you will frequently say to a candidate, yes, I'm happy to do some postcards for you. Let's talk about some positives, and let's find someone in the community who's a big fan of yours and use them on the postcard, someone who's willing to be on the card to say, hey, this is our friend Susie. We love her. She's a great candidate, and this is why we want you to vote for her too.
Right.
And I think those are very effective.
And it's just a bandwagon effect, you know?
Right,
I mean,
right.
we're still talking about advertising, and we aspire to be truth dealers, but give a bandwagon effect, right? It's basic. Everybody loves so-and-so. Vote for so-and-so. It's what you do.
Well, and for all the words that you and I are dumping here right now, I mean, the fact is, as a progressive, none of the things that have been done recently in concert have worked. Have we moved the needle in some places? Yes.
Yeah.
But let's take our discussion out even bigger. And I just need to ask someone who is an expert in communications and has decided to sort of zero in on politics. What are we going to do? What the message of progressives? I mean, we've been painted into this idea that every one of us are the extremes of our party, and I realize that the conservatives have the same issue. I do. I know my party, the Democratic Party, the umbrella is very large, and I'm somewhere in the middle, you know. But how are we going to let me just back up. Let me just ask the big question. What do you think was missed in the presidential election that we could have done better that might have made a difference communication-wise?
I don't think I believe there's anything we could have done differently. And this is good for me and you to grapple with, right? Because we did this work together. We think we did it great, but like we also lost it.
Well, how about was our messaging on the economy what it needed to be?
You know, I think about this all the time. Kamala Harris begged people to know that she wanted to give people a $50,000 tax credit for down payment assistance, right? She wanted to reintroduce price controls, right? So it just drives me crazy to think about, like, what would we have said better?
Well,
we're looking at a landscape of people who are unable to know whatever she says, right? So I get a little defensive on that.
But what I hear a lot of people say, and I think it's probably an interesting topic, is that reality is what people have decided is reality to them. And it became apparent, to me at least, that the reality for a lot of people was that they were struggling and they were not better off than they were 4 years ago. You kept hearing that phrase. Now, my family, my personal family, we were doing okay, are doing okay. We're very fortunate. You know, we're doing okay. Do I think, based on the numbers I've seen of the economy, that a lot of people were not better off? Well, the numbers don't show that. But once the perception is there and it's living and breathing, you cannot change that.
Right.
I think we did not speak to that in ways that let people know that we understand your
I would agree with
pain.
That. And I think we lost so much credibility on it that it was already blown.
Yeah. And
truly. I don't want to mean to say we did a great job, because I don't think that. But I think there was an anti-incumbency wave around the world post-COVID.
Yes.
We've seen evidence of that. And I think we can frame the election as like, thank God it wasn't worse.
Yeah, maybe. But I think also that it's an odd thing to say, but it's true. We failed, and I say we as in progressive, failed to recognize that many voters simply don't care if someone is a philanderer and a prolific liar and a mean bully. They don't care. If they're convinced that this person hears them and sees them and is going to make the grocery cart cheaper, once they're convinced of that,
Mm-hmm.
there's very little that he could do that would make people turn against him.
Right. We all live in hermetically sealed media universes that don't, I think I really try to grapple with, what the hell do these people think or do? You're calling yourself a Christian and lying about this and doing this to people. And I still want to offer people grace.
Right.
And so I think I try to dwell on what people know and are able to know and what are they able to believe, right? And I want them to do better, but it helps me not think regular people are evil.
It's true. Yeah. And I have friends who are conservatives, and I have neighbors who are conservatives, people that I like very, very much.
Right.
And I am not one of those progressives who limits my life to only people who agree with me. I try not to do that. Right. Now, because of the role I've played, there's a lot of people who just don't want to be my friend, but that's their choice, not mine. And there are a lot of people, when they see my name, they assume they know a lot about me when they really don't. But, I have people, in my circle who are very, very conservative and very, very religiously conservative.
Right.
Lovely people. Neighbors, I do anything for my neighbor. Love her.
Right.
But I do think that it is an interesting concept to think that someone can convince so many people that he is going to solve a problem they have, that they then just do not care what else he does or has done. And that's a lesson, I believe, for all of us, because I don't ever want to fall into that trap. No matter who the candidate is or who the person is, I don't want to be the person that says, yeah, you go against everything I believe in morally, but hey, man, you made me this promise, so I'm all in. I don't want to be that person.
No, me neither. And I think we have a lot of people in this state who are comfortable looking to a strong authority. And you can learn that at church, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where it is. I mean, if I can swerve us a little, I mean, we want to know, how do we communicate with people, right? How do we communicate with these folks who seem to be deceived or deluded or something?
How do we communicate with them? You're the expert.
Oh, is that why I'm on?
Yes, it is. Also, you're my friend and you're a cool guy, but yes, you're an expert.
Yeah, I know. I was cool and in a great mood, and then you called me a master, and I lost it. Thanks for that. No, I mean, when you have conversations with a MAGA person and you're able to not talk politics but know someone, and you might hear things like, well, I'm conservative and I'm really patriotic and I'm Republican, but, I'm for legalizing weed. And what happened to George Floyd? Well, that wasn't right. And that they shouldn't have done that girl that way. I mean, right. I mean,
so
we
you
all
can find some common things.
And that tension is loud, right?
Yes.
And I think it is getting harder for people. And they don't like us either, right? We know they just do not like us. And I don't know how to fix that, but I do think there's maybe an opening to communicate on a more spiritual level. We've forgotten to do that as Democrats, but and we like secular ideas and we think they're useful and we believe in separation of church and state for great reasons, right? But a lot of us are spiritual people moved to have moral government.
Right.
And I think we should get more comfortable talking in that way. It can be done cheaply. We've all heard it done cheaply and we don't like it.
True.
But wearing that on our sleeve a little more might not hurt. And it might go farther in Tennessee, than it might in New England. But we got to try some shit, right? Well,
yeah. And I think one person at a time, we have to try to change the narrative a bit. And so, that may mean that by just me living my life and doing the things I do, I might make a little extra effort to, I don't know, show some charity to someone who then would be surprised to learn, and she's a Democrat,
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that you look for every day, if you can do something that makes someone sort of surprised
Right.
by that, maybe you can begin to change their idea of what a quote Democrat is.
Right. I mean, yeah. My neighborhood in East Nashville, I know a lot of the unhoused people and will usually let go of some cash in my pocket, right?
Yeah.
And that drive is tied to the same reason I get so mad about food stamps,
Right.
right? That I don't even use.
Right.
Right. But I mean, I don't talk about giving homeless people money all the time because I'm not a jackass.
Right.
But
right.
those things are spiritual and moral in me, and they are related to my politics. And I don't think they're seen and felt by Tennessee the way they should be.
Well, yeah, that's
true. In a lot of us, right? Not look at Matt Anderson, but
right.
You get what I'm saying.
No, I do. I think I'm not real sure as a Democrat anymore about a lot of things, but I definitely am not sure about how to talk about what our legislature is doing and make that feel even remotely good.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's this runaway train, and I'm just thinking, how far is it going before it falls off the cliff and we can get back to normalcy? I mean, and for listeners who are not in Tennessee, look, normalcy, for us would just mean we have a seat at the table, basically, and we get to be heard occasionally. But that it's gotten worse. I did not think after last year it could get worse. And then this year started. It
can always get worse. I mean, so like, this is where my weird zoom out history journey is relevant. Okay. Like, how did we come to have a Republican supermajority that powerful and this vicious and just getting away
grassroots
with everything? We know that, but the malignant force in this state that you can trace back to the founding and through slavery and Jim Crow and all these things, it's concentrated in one party right now. And it's been diffuse, right? You look at like some mid-century bipartisan consensus years, right? You accommodate on civil rights, and then you write the op-ed about how...
But there was a Democratic supermajority at one time.
I know.
Who also behaved badly.
Right. And I think this can help us account for... Both parties have done some horrible, awful things right now. And it's been really well sorted now. I think maybe that's self-serving as a Democrat to say. I should check myself.
It's pretty sorted.
But I think the morality has been pretty well sorted. Not to say there aren't good Republican members. There's Sam Whitsons everywhere. They're good in their hearts, this and that. But like what is happening and getting produced and the direction they're going, right? That's all malignancy. And it's hard for people to see that who have a lot of loyalty to Christianity, to the Republican Party, to a really almost militant concept of America that we have here, right?
Right.
If that's where your loyalty and roots feel like they are, it's really scary to rebel against the government, right? And then you're being asked to side with us freaks.
Yes.
I mean, that's a quiet, silent thing to hold. Yes. I guess I'm really sympathetic to people who are politically torn right now, right?
Well, and I'm sure there are a lot are. I mean, I'm a former Republican, evangelical, and I don't mean I just went to church occasionally. Man, I was all in, sang in the choir, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, taught VBS, all of it. And so I know that world, and I'm still very spiritual, and I'm still a Christian, but I'm traumatized from organized religion and have to work my way through that.
And I am too.
But so I do know people who are very, very devout Christians who are beginning now to really struggle with some of the things they're asked to nod to.
Right.
And that's hard for them. And I know, even as a Democrat, when I see a Democratic politician do something that I don't like or give a view that I think is just a little too far out there, that does sort of pull at you a bit. And you just think, well, what's up? Why did he do that?
Right.
Now I'm embarrassed.
And I think we clean house pretty well, where's Senator Al Franken? Like, I don't want to open up that can of worms, but right. Like, that was swift.
That was swift. But man, if that happened today, it would be a nothing sandwich.
Right.
I mean, what a shame, really. When you think about it, you think, man, he got swept away in a fast hurry. And now, look what we got serving in all over the place.
Right. I mean, if you were like looking at corruption nationally, you think, and wrongdoing, Al Franken got one treatment. Glenn Cassidy got this whole other. Like, before they got caught doing stuff, it started to feel like they wanted you to know what they could get away with, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The day they made David Byrd a subcommittee chair, that was like, yeah, we know what he confessed to. We know you know, and we know you're mad, and we're going to make him a subcommittee chair, and you're going to like it, you know?
Yes.
That was the kind of...
And I think that brazenness is kind of what we're seeing now. I mean, I do think that President Trump has appointed some people that he's done it mainly just to tick a lot of people off, you know, like Hegseth.
Right.
I mean, come on.
He is the terminal result of the worst of Tennessee settling into Williamson County into a soup, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. No worth jackass. His mother talks about him on TV, right? I can't imagine my mother talking about me on TV.
It would have to be pretty bad for Mama to go on TV and talk badly about you.
Yeah, I mean, right. He should be embarrassed about that. He should be embarrassed about his stupid ass tattoos. He should be embarrassed about his push-up theater. He knows nothing about global politics.
No.
But how did he get to that job? Through this amorphous system of, you know, he was of Williamson County, of this culture. He's a Fox News host. He's on the CMAs, right? Now he's the fucking Secretary of Defense.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Right? Like, that's a path Tennessee created.
It's crazy.
We don't want that path to be common in America. We want that path to go straight back to hell.
Well, yeah, we do.
Right? I mean,
we do. But circling back to our conversation about messaging and politics being such a dirty business.
Thank you.
You know, it's just not attracting, politics is not attracting the best of us. And I really wish that it would. How do you think that is rooted in the way finances and politics have gotten so mixed up? Is that really good people just say, oh, there's no way I'm running for office?
Yeah.
Even a school board office.
Yeah, and running for any office, we should remember, has always been sort of class gated, right?
Mm-hmm.
There would be, you know, there's a list of what you need to be to get in, right? We keep expanding it, and like we kind of stopped and we're trying to go back. But yeah, think about what you're asking somebody. You know, people love to talk about, okay, who are we going to run for Senate? Who are we going to run for governor? Think about what you're asking that person to do. Hi, perfect statewide candidate. I want you to cancel all your plans for the next 18 months. We all know you're going to get 38%. I would like you to spend all your family's money, and you've likely got teenagers, and I would like you to miss their summer.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right.
Because it makes me feel good to have a nominee I've heard of, right?
I mean, you're right.
And that's like maybe too mean and cynical, right?
But I think it's true for the Republicans too, though, because you're asking people to primary some of these folks, and you're saying, you know, put yourself out there and primary this person. You're probably not going to win because they have this political machine they've had for years. But yes, give up your entire life.
Yeah.
And do this because, you know, we want you to. We think you're a good person. You're a strong candidate. You know, I mean, you're exactly right. And I don't know how we fix that in America. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, no bill is going to pass through Congress or the state legislature on this. We could write all this stuff where we, you know, have a publicly funded campaigns, and you're allowed to use money for child care expenses, et cetera, et cetera. We could do all that, but it's not going to pass. What you have to do is just rally around people in your community that want to run or could run, and make sure they know you've got their back, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you've got a thing, I'll watch your kids.
At the entry level.
Right.
You know, at the school board level, at the county commission level, at the, you know, board of mayor and alderman level.
Right.
Whatever level it's at.
Right. We can't fix it, but you can listen for it nearby.
Yeah.
And do a little good.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good way to look at it. I do wish that, and there have been some excellent candidates. I do wish that that we would have, certainly on the national level, just better people running. Better people running. And I think, since you're a communications expert, it seems like, from my point of view, that communications these days in politics is not just speaking out about things and putting things out on the internet, email blast, recorded phone calls, whatever, in the news. But it also, a real important aspect of it is not saying anything. So it's like Marsha Blackburn's communication strategy is, I'm not going to Tennessee to talk to those people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it. And golly, Pete, it's working.
Well, it looks
What's that about?
You know what, though? It looks like it's working to us.
Well, she keeps getting elected.
But right. No, we have the misfortune of living in it. But like, no one has eternal control over anything. She may die in her bed, a U.S. senator or governor, right? But like, as a regime, they're not eternal.
No,
trying
but
to give you a bright spin here.
But my point is, what kind of communication strategy is say nothing? I mean, obviously, in some cases, it's a pretty doggone good one.
It's what power looks like, right? I don't have to. I'm so powerful. I don't have to say anything.
That's a good point.
Whereas we have to scream and wail the truth, to get heard, and people join our side once in a while.
And when we were in charge, it was the same in the reverse.
It absolutely was. We should be really honest about our own sins. And I think the party does gatekeep a lot on who should run. And, they won't say they shouldn't run, but they'll say, well, the right candidate is this, right?
So let me ask you just point blank, because we're going to get a little Tennessee specific. I know I have listeners in other places, but John Rose v. Marsha Blackburn.
What about it?
Who do you think's going to take it?
Do you want me to go there? I mean, look, my joke on that race is I'll take Marsha over the pedophile.
Okay.
I mean, and no, I'm not for Marsha, but that's what I'm willing to say about it. I think, nobody wants to be rude to or about a family, but in public life, is that what Tennessee wants for its daughters? And I have to think that answer is no. But my punditry answer would be, I think Marsha wins that. She's just too good, too powerful, and nobody knows who John Rose is. He could maybe replicate the Bill Lee outsider thing.
I guess he could, but he does have the negative of courting his current wife when she was a minor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm using the most loaded term possible, but at the end of the day, we know.
And I want anybody listening to attorneys to know he said it.
Yeah. That was me. But look, I don't know when he felt a stirring in his heart.
Right.
And I'd love for him to say, but he hasn't.
No, he has always avoided that.
He's always avoided it. And, we don't have to dwell on it, but I think, I think he's trying to get the Bill Lee lane that Bill Lee won with quite capably. As a campaign practitioner, I'm a fan of his first primary win. I thought it was well executed and well crafted, and obviously effective. I don't know if John Rose can replicate it just because he's not, I don't know, maybe less credible. Bill Lee had some faith and substance behind him that John Rose doesn't.
He absolutely did.
Yeah. I mean, John Rose can be Mr. Farmer, but, Bill Lee was also not up against Marsha Blackburn.
Well,
that lady's crazy. We hate her. But
I think that's what disappoints me most about Governor Lee is because I truly do think that he is a man of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that he is a good person, but he's just making some decisions and signing off on some bills that I want to continue to believe that he struggles with that only because I'm not willing yet to say he's no good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen, I've wrestled with that a lot about Bill Lee.
Now, I'm not a fan, and I'm not ever going to vote for him. But.
No, me neither. I think about him more than he's worth. He came into office with some sincere devotion to helping refugees
Yes.
and to criminal justice reform that I didn't think we'd agree a lot, but I thought was authentic.
Yes.
And he came in like someone who was politically ignorant and didn't know his party was against those things, or at least I don't think he knew what he was going to meet taking pro-refugee politics and policy to the state legislature. I do not think he, as smart as he might be about a lot of things, I don't think he had any idea what he was walking into, and he buckled and caved. And that's been the story of his governorship, I would say, right? I mean, God, I feel like I'm really turning the screw on him here, but like, you're talking about the most powerful man in the state. He can't be seen in public with his sister, and he can't grieve his wife's best friend in public.
I know.
Like, what is that? And that doesn't come from a place of hate, like what happened to you?
Yeah, it is true. I thought with the covenant thing that we would see more. And I know he was devastated by it, but
yeah, absolutely,
it was his wife's very best friend was shot and killed, and I have to say I want to believe that period of time and what his people were telling him he could and couldn't do had to be very painful.
Absolutely. No, it's worth examining his humanity. I don't mean to take that away, right? But those contradictions that he's stuck in tell us a lot about our state.
Well, and I think once his term is over, because he's term limited out, if he doesn't stay in politics, maybe someday he will do an interview and just speak real openly about those things.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not about, I don't want to be shallow about it. It's not like I need Bill Lee to do my political platform in response to all this stuff, right? But think about a man's heart that's stuck in that spot. It's sad.
Right. Yeah, it is.
It's very Tennessee, and it's very sad.
When we look at, what we're about to come up on, which is, 2026 and another round of elections, both at local levels, state, and certainly federal levels. Are you getting hints of what sort of a unified communication strategy may be? Any messaging that they think will stick this time and help?
Yeah. I think the Tennessee voter right now understands that our state is becoming a victim of chaos.
Okay.
And there are some MAGA people who would laugh and cackle at that and tell me I'm high as a witch doctor. A 3%er told me that online the other day, and I loved it. High as a witch doctor. So, but yeah, I think that people, and I mean that to thread together, there's not a lot of people saying like Elon Musk is this and this and this, and they're fascist. Like, people aren't there. But this one thing they care about, they see in a Doge headline, right? Or you see on Fox that this is all a joke, but then your friend lost something they needed.
Lost their job or...
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we're in that same soup with the state legislature, right? They're just wrecking the hemp industry because they were too stupid to know what their original bill did.
Right.
They wouldn't have done it if they'd known.
Right.
And now they're wrecking livelihoods.
Yes.
Right. And so I think there is a gut sense out there, even if it's not like news literate or democratic, that this chaos sucks. Right. And what do we do about it? It's going to be really hard to convince them the solution is to vote Democratic, right? But that's the grind we're in.
Well, and I think the division is, I will say one of the things I'm trying to be very conscious about not doing is classifying people MAGA,
right?
Or because I know the opposite of that is what they're going to call us libtards,
right?
And I'm trying to be very careful about that because I want to see people as who they are. And while I may strongly disagree with their political decisions, I just don't want to make them other than.
Right.
And that's a danger, though, because right now it's very difficult. And I think my listeners will agree with this. You're driving down the road and you see somebody that's got a Trump sticker on their car. You immediately think you know everything about the person driving that car.
Right. And look, I need to mock them for my mental health.
Yeah.
But when shit hits the fan and people come to you or there's a sincere moment, you hold that with grace too.
I mean, I know what you're saying. And there are some days when I see that person on the highway and it's all I can do not to raise a finger.
Mm-hmm.
It's all I can do not to just, think I'll just, I want to do, what is that scene out of Fried Green Tomatoes where I just hit your car repeatedly because I have insurance, And then other days, the better part of me is leading that day or that moment. And I think, how sad.
Mm-hmm.
They've been sucked in by all of that.
Yeah.
And they're probably a better person than what they're voting.
Right.
And I hope that when people, I don't go around with bumper stickers on my car, and no, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. It's just I don't. But I hope that when people, when they hear, oh, Peggy Kingsbury, she's a Democrat, I hope that they don't judge me that way and assume they think they know everything about me when they don't. But the division, I believe, the party in power right now is using to its advantage.
Yeah. And I think there are pockets outside our party that regret how divided we are. And they might place more blame on Democrats than we would, but they know it's bipartisan.
Right.
So, back to our statewide message in 2026, right? Like, this chaos is killing us.
That's I think probably a pretty good message, because there is chaos. I mean, we have family members who work for the federal government, live in Tennessee, and they're officed in Tennessee, so they're not working from home.
Mm-hmm.
They are not lazy. They're not no good. They're not mooching off the system like the other side is trying to act like all government employees are bad people. That's absurd.
Right.
And then we have, friends who work at Vanderbilt right now, and for example, and they're undergoing this, what's going to happen to us? What's happening to the funding? Why is there all this, and I've heard stories in the past several days about Tennesseans trying to call Social Security about something. I heard a story about a woman whose husband passed away, and she was just assumed that his benefits would start coming to her because his were more, and that's how it's supposed to work. But that's not the system anymore. And she has been put through heck trying to get an appointment, answer the phone on an exact day and time, to make an appointment to go in person, to prove all these documents.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that 90 days ago would have been like that.
Right. That
was a system that was working pretty well.
Right.
And we also know that there were not hundreds of thousands of people getting benefits who were dead. And, but once the lie is repeated enough, I guess you see this in your industry a lot. Once it's repeated enough, it becomes the truth. And if a politician then tries to say, no, that's not true, it doesn't help.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's what a challenge that we face in Tennessee, right? That a person who loses Social Security is less credible than, on Fox, I saw Trump say he won't take away Social Security.
Yes.
You must be lying. The paper lies. I mean, I can't fight that as a campaign practitioner, right? You just got to go around it. Somebody's curious enough and able to listen. You just got to go past.
Well, and I had a guest on pretty early on when I started doing the podcast, and we were talking about communications, and she said that one of the things that she coaches people on listening skills is that when you hear something, are you believing it because you wish it to be true?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the things that are being believed now are because people wish them to be true.
Right.
Now, they may know intellectually that's probably not true.
Yeah.
But they wish them to be true.
Yeah.
And I've really taken that to heart, and I've tried to listen. And when I immediately think, oh, yeah, I think, wait a minute. Am I just believing that right now because I wish it to be true? Let me do a little fact checking before I repeat that.
Yeah.
Which I think, and the other tip that I've always heard, I may have shared it on the podcast before. I did some communication training with Burson Marsteller when I was working a corporate job. And one of the things they taught us is never repeat the negative. So if someone says, is it true that you slapped your spouse around?
Mm-hmm.
You don't answer by saying, no, I did not slap my spouse around, because then you're saying those negative words again.
Right.
So when you're defending yourself, you should immediately go to the positive.
Right.
I'm a wonderful spouse. and I treat my spouse very well. We have a deep love for one another. We have a good, strong marriage.
Right. And their lies are so crazy that it makes it hard.
It makes it
because you
hard.
want to scream, I am not a pedophile. I am not in the girls' restroom looking for girls.
Right. It makes it very hard. It makes it very hard. Yes, as a progressive, it makes it very hard to come back and say, for example, no, I don't want 5-year-olds to have gender affirming surgery. That's not even a thing.
It's hard. I mean, this is why I'm so hard on John Rose, because he participates in that lie.
Yes,
they all do. So there's just not and maybe it's up to Democrats to define where the real child predation is, not in a scummy way, but want to deal with that. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. But I mean, it's when groups of people that we care about are being demonized. For example, librarians.
Right.
Teachers.
Right.
And during COVID, it was medical personnel, nurses.
Right.
When you see that happening and they're attacking, I always go back to this because there's a teacher in my neighborhood and I see her early some mornings get out. She's hauling all this crap out into her car that I know she's probably paid for all this craft supplies and stuff. She's taking it to school. And she's got to get there at 6:30 to be in the car rider line because it's her week to do that. Mm-hmm. And I see that and I think, is it really true that some of my neighbors look at her and think, oh, there goes that groomer? Right. I think, oh, my God, there goes Miss Mary. She's going to the school to teach the children and protect them if the shooter comes in. And I love her so much. And she's so sweet and kind and spends her own money teaching children. And I'm like, how did we get to this place where we think, you're a teacher? Are you out grooming today? Mm-hmm. What in the world?
Again, Peggy, we're in a haunted land and people are deceived.
I mean, it's just,
you've got to attack it spiritually, really.
And also then I'm pretty introspective about a lot of things. So then I also think, well, when they see me come out in the morning, are they thinking, oh, there she goes, looking for some child to do gender affirming surgery on, and she's trying to convince these kids they're gay, and oh yeah, maybe you're a furry, maybe you're really not a kid, maybe you're a bear. It's subtler now. They might say you're a busybody or something, right? Or she's a know-it-all or stuff like that. And they're on the edge of you're a screaming, raging pedophile. You haven't seen my social media.
It's worse. I know. They tell me shit like that.
They say a lot of things about me. And
I'm for pedo Joe.
And it's so funny that when I see my name in these things, and I'm like, but you don't even know me. Why would you say that about me just because of the position I held? What in the world, But I mean, when we talk about communications and what your area of expertise is, I cannot imagine walking that minefield right now.
Yeah, I mean, like you asked me, what's the platform and communicate, and all my answers are like about people and souls and but like, what's your door in to reach people? You've got to think through that part. And then the policy comes next. But, and it feels like we're in a place in our country, but it's acute in the South where people don't think, oh, this state policy results in X. Therefore, I'm going to vote for the person who is behind my preferred policy. Is my lawmaker behind or against my preferred policy? I'm going to, people just do not do that. And that's what you're supposed to do civically, right?
That's true.
It's what you're supposed to do.
I mean, that's a very good and valid point, is that we don't often think about if I vote for this person who says they're going to do that, what does that really mean?
Yeah, I don't think, and people just, I guess I'm really weird and you probably do a similar thing like I just modeled, right? Like, here's my issues. Here's what I think. Let me line up who agrees, right? Let's max out the MAT platform by my vote. Right.
And I also realize that every candidate I vote for will not be 100% down the line exactly aligned with everything.
I mean, I've performed blasphemy and voted Republican like once or twice, right? And how you feel about that year or that election. But I think for more people, it's a lot more gut level. Do I trust this person? Do they care about me? And can they do the job, right? So those biographical things you want to overcome to get in the door with people. You want to, I think Democrats have done a really crappy job in our last few gubernatorials. I don't want to criticize any specific candidate, but like, are we putting up people who could credibly be governor? Right?
Right.
Like
who actually can govern.
If I went to Coffee County and got 30 people in the room, would they think our candidates are like credible people to run the state before any politics, right? So you kind of have to do that part.
Well, I mean, and is that something your firm does? Do you do focus groups like that?
No, I shouldn't say I would love to do them one day. I've never really done one. That was a fantasy focus group, right? But you know, like,
but it makes sense,
right? You can. I'm like, think about India Kincannon. She's somebody I've worked with that might not be super familiar to your listeners, but she's the mayor of Knoxville.
Okay.
She served on the school board and has. She's a very outdoorsy person and a mother, but she's very well educated, and the business community respects her, and she is considered a friend of theirs, right? I mean, I think has a great political resume. If I look at India, I think she could be governor, right? Now, she doesn't want to run this time, and that's reasonable, but you know, do we put forth candidates who it feels like, man, they could walk into the governor's office and get to work?
So who do you think will run on the Democratic side? What's the scuttlebutt?
What's the scuttle?
Tell us.
I feel like that's unfair. I don't want to do that and pretend I know something because I don't.
Well, just make a guess.
Well, no, I mean, you hear names like John Ray Clemens wanting to run, and I've heard of Lee Harris wanting to run.
I don't know who Lee Harris is.
He's the Shelby County mayor.
Okay.
So, you know, I always rag on Nashville people because Nashville people don't know what a county mayor versus a city mayor is. But,
yeah.
Shelby County has a Democratic county mayor, and he's done that for I think 1.5 terms now.
What's the big city in Shelby County?
I don't know if your listeners have been there, but Memphis. It's in the West.
Yeah.
A little bit of soul music out there, barbecue.
So
you
being
should check
county
it out
mayor
sometimes.
of Shelby County is a pretty big job.
It's right. And so like, have we run those kind of candidates in the past? I don't want to diss anybody, but like Lee Harris.
Yeah.
Am I saying he's the best or best of everything? What? Not really. I'm just saying like that core credibility is there that you want to see when we recruit candidates.
Right.
And we don't, at the legislative level too, again, like, are you a member of your community that people trust on a level that's not political?
And I would say, and we're going to wrap it up here in a minute, but I would say, speaking of someone like Andy Ogles, the answer is no, and yet he got reelected.
Right. It's absolutely on that side, right? And I think our candidates gradually every cycle, it feels like we raise that bar.
Yes.
Absolutely raise that bar. I'm so proud of the crop of candidates we had last cycle. People like Allie and Miriam Abel-Fosley, I thought everybody was fantastic. Anybody that wants to run again should. Where were we? Wrap me up, Peggy.
Trying to get rid of Andy Ogles.
Trying to get rid of Andy Ogles. I mean, look, seeing him on the D-Triple list was exciting. The D-Trip target list. They'll the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, they'll publish lists of targets.
And he's
quotes.
a target. Well, he's thank goodness. Maybe he's now stepped in enough.
And I'm sure he's in the bottom pit of his target. But if you're going to think about how midterms typically work, the way the economy seems certain to go, again, I'm not like cheering for bad things to happen.
No, I know.
But if you just try to forecast a little bit, we could have a good year for D's.
Right.
Which, we know what that looks like. You got to set expectations on that. But like, it's a good time to flip a House seat, maybe.
Could be.
And a good time to focus in on county races that get looked over and forgotten. Because if you kind of look at political heat maps, you'll notice, there's a little blue dot in Coffee County. What is that? Right.
Right.
And if you were thoughtful about where there's a school board seat and some blue flicker, you could put a map together.
Right.
So
there's
a lot of opportunity.
And I think we share the idea that we want things to go well for people, and we want the state to be well run. We want the country to be well run. And, I'm not on the side of some people now that are saying, I hope the worst happens so that people will wake up and realize what they've done. I don't want that, because I don't want suffering for anybody anywhere. I just don't. I want people to to realize that our shared values can always be, we want to live good lives. We want our families to live good lives. We want our families to be happy, and we want to be happy. And those are our shared values as Americans. I can't imagine anyone who doesn't have those. And so if we start there and then divide ourselves up, I think it's better, right?
Yeah.
And
you know what? If you can do it in Williamson County, the whole thing crumbles everywhere.
I think that's true.
Right?
I mean, it's sadly and happily because of the financial status of the county, the people in the county, and the number of people who are powerful who live in the county. Mm-hmm. It's real pivotal, isn't it?
Sermons get market tested here.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And if you can change the content of that sermon in a moral direction,
it would be,
the ripple is insane.
It would be fabulous. And I know so many good people here, and I believe that can happen.
Yeah. I told you I'd make you a believer in Tennessee.
Yeah.
There's still a Tennessee waiting to be born.
Yes, there is. Well, thank you so much, Matt. What you do is a real service to people, but also it's a crafty little business. I love the way that you market out different, print media, but also you do some digital work as well. And, Yeah,
no, I'm not a video competent person, but a lot of things that are like static design or copy, we dabble in that stuff. And, it's a greedy little venture. I want to change the state and you also do work that I love and hopefully put food on the table and not be too greedy.
Now, does your firm does some internet marketing, email blasts, that kind of thing?
We're down to clown.
Okay.
Which is a silly thing to say. Tasha would be mad at me, my business partner. We are open to building things for clients that are strategically useful. And we're pretty competent communicators and writers.
Yes, you are.
Tasha, I'm Mr. ADHD and kind of lose the thread here and there. But like Tasha centers me and is really into operations and has a great voice of her own that she adds. So, we've taken on some unique projects with like Out Memphis, which is a really great LGBTQ service organization. That they actually do like housing and things like that alongside advocacy. But we'll take on special projects for people. So that's what I mean when I say we're down to clown.
That sounds good.
If we have something that we can offer you, like we're open to taking it on.
Right. So if someone needs some help with messaging and some ideas there, they need to give you a call.
Yeah, well, no, and it's a little bit of a boutique operation, I'd say. We've got, I think, maybe one of the best political graphic designers in the country. She's based in Brooklyn and works with us. And I bring a former journalist voice, right? So you can, if you want a firm to drop a bunch of postcards, there's a lot of those, but we try to offer some value and insight that's local and hopefully great value for what we charge.
How would someone find out about you? How would they get in touch with you?
My email is matt@fortifycommunications.com. If it's, if it's business or if you just want to reach out to me as a party official, grab coffee, that's okay too. Get mattanderson@gmail.com.
Perfect. We'll have those in the show notes for everybody. And I know you're working on getting a big fancy website up as well. Because you had some glamour shots. Yeah,
we did a little photo shoot. It's the backbone of a good website. It's just to get your good photography. And that was a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll launch all that soon. We were fortunate to have people that wanted to work with us last year that we didn't. It would have been a distraction to focus.
But now you've got time to build the business
now. It feels great that we've got a little starter year behind us, and we can be like, "This is us. This is what we do." Yeah. So,
well, having seen your work and seen how you work through things, I can say that you're very skilled at what you do, and I love the way that the mailers have come out. They're positive. They're also pointed, and they're also saying why you need to vote for this person, but they're positive, and they're not, some craziness.
Turns
people off.
Little simple truth and some uplift. That's all you want to do.
There you go. Perfect.
So anyway.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much, and always love working with you too. So appreciate what you do for Williamson County.
Well, thank you. I want to thank the listeners once again for listening to us today, and make sure that you like and share the episode. If you have guest ideas, email those to me. And if you have, criticisms or great ideas for the podcast, let me know about those things too. I'm real open to all that. So I hope everyone has a great day, and we will talk to you next week.